Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka Leak Skywalker, and that episode was Fett for a king in almost every sense of the word, which I just made up. Now this is probably my favourite episode in the entirety of The Mandalorian, and at this point I think Season 2 is probably the best Star Wars that we've had since Empire. Though it was the shortest one this season, it was actually very sweet, and may just be in complete fanboy mode right now, but that's how much I loved it. Now we're 2 episodes away from the finale, and if you've been enjoying the breakdowns, then I'd massively appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up button, and also subscribe to the channel because it helps us out in major ways. The Force will be with you always if you do, and you know I'd love you more than Mando loves Grogu. Anyway, last week we learned that the child was actually at the Jedi Temple on Coruscant during Order 66, but he must have left to get some snacks because it turns out that he survived the purge and was put into hiding. The chapter titled The Tragedy follows on from that with Mando en route to Tython in order to place him at the top of the Seeing Stone so that he can reach out to another Jedi. Grogu has the silver ball that he's been fascinated over since Season 1, and Mando actually gets a response from him by saying his name, so like it or lump it, that's what he's going to be called from now on. Also, I don't know if you've noticed, but he actually has a heart shape in the middle of his forehead, which makes him that much more adorable, and this episode I think they really emphasised it quite a lot. Now Mando gets him to reach out and pull the ball through the Force, which I think hints towards a subtle little thing. Din Djarin is of course gutted that he's going to have to hand over Grogu to one of the Jedi, but I think him going through these motions shows that he, in the end, might actually be the one to train him. I know he doesn't have any Jedi abilities, but he seems to be up for the idea of putting him through certain processes and testing his abilities, so who knows, down the line the child might stay with him. I'd much rather have that than have the pair split up, and I actually think this episode hints towards why they shouldn't. At the end, Grogu can be seen completely decimating stormtroopers through the use of the Force, and it seems like he may be turning to the dark side. Ahsoka did warn him that his attachment and feelings towards Mando made him too dangerous to train, and thus him acting like this when he's separated does seem to confirm it. Who knows, we may even end with Grogu being taken to a Jedi who thinks the character is too dangerous to teach, and thus Mando must take it upon himself to do it. He says he can't do it, but maybe if he had some guidance himself from a certain Jedi, he would be able to. Either way, there's a lot of things that could be going down, but of course, leave your thoughts below. Now Mando also says Dank Ferric, which is a curse in the Star Wars lore. I actually thought it was the name of Bo-Katan's mate at first, so thanks everyone for correcting me. And it turns out this is actually a curse word that popped up all the way back in Season 1, Episode 1, when Mythrol said it after being captured. I love that they're dropping it here, and it just adds a lot more to the universe. Now they arrive at Tython, and this too is steeped in Star Wars lore. Tython is in the system of the Deep Core, and it was actually a pivotal location for the Jedi, which is what the Order was called before they shortened it slightly. The group realised that they could split the Force in two, and thus the Sith and Jedi were formed, and a galactic war broke out on the planet. The settlers of Tython eventually reached out into the galaxy, and thus the Order was formed, which brought peace to it for generations. Mando takes Grogu to the Seeing Stone, and we can actually see blue-winged butterflies around the area. These have actually appeared several times when our characters have been on Endor, and typically they are used as messengers. Grogu is of course trying to send a message here, so I do appreciate their usage. Things seem to be going off without a hitch, but if something seems too easy, oftentimes it isn't. This episode is of course titled The Tragedy, and a big spanner in the works comes with the arrival of Slave One, piloted by none other than Boba Fett. If you remember the Bounty Hunter game for the PS2 in which you played Jango Fett, you'll recall that you stole the ship and it has remained in the Fett family since then. I absolutely love it, and with the Millennium Falcon, it's probably one of my favourite vessels in Star Wars lore. Be honest, yeah, who didn't fanboy out when they saw this flying in? You're lying if you said you didn't. Now, it turns out that Fett just wants his armour back, and I'm actually still a bit confused over why he didn't try and take it from Cobb Vanth Refrigeration. Perhaps he was waiting until he had an ally, who we learn in this episode is Fennec Shand. Their partnership was of course teased all the way back in Season 1, and it turns out that he fitted her with cybernetic parts after she was left for dead by Toro. Though it was never confirmed, we do know that Shand was an Imperial sharpshooter, and personally I believe that she was part of Gideon's unit and may be aware of his headquarters, which we'll talk about later in the video. Now seeing Fett is awesome, and throughout the saga, though I loved him, I never really had a response when people used to say he pretty much Mr. Magoo'd his way through everything. However, here he rights all those wrongs and shows just how much of a badass he is. Fett simply wants his father Jango's armor returned to him, and he has Shand sitting on top of a rock with a gun aimed at Grogu should Mando not hand it over. I love how Mando threatens them with the whistling birds, which become a formidable item later in the episode. Now Mando agrees to put down his jetpack, and we learn more of their story. It turns out that Fett found kinship in Shand because they were both left for dead on Tatooine, and the latter is now in his service because he saved her life. Plus, she's not bad to look at, is she? Now, they almost reach a negotiation, but unfortunately an Imperial troop carrier arrives and stormtroopers swarm the area. You may remember this vehicle from the opening of The Force Awakens, as Finn was dropped off in one at the start of that movie. Mando stupidly leaves his jetpack behind, and things just go to hell. We can also see a stormtrooper wearing an orange pauldron, and though I'm sure you're aware of what these are, just in case you aren't, they denote rank amongst the Galactic Empire. The black coloured pauldron is for an enlisted trooper, white is for a sergeant, and orange is for a unit leader, which is why we see this guy bossing everyone around. Fett completely decimates them using a Tusken Raider spear, and we finally see why most people try and avoid them on the desert planet, as they're pretty lethal. Shand also fights back in amazing fashion, and using her sharpshooting skill she manages to take down several troopers before they set up an E-Web heavy repeating blaster that fires back with incredible force. Using her environment she manages to kick a boulder that becomes dislodged by a mortar and then takes out the placement. It's an incredible action scene, and for someone that was worried about this potentially being a filler episode, I was so glad to be proven wrong. Fett decides that enough is enough, and he goes to the Razor to take the armor himself, and watching him arrive was absolutely amazing. This is the kind of character moment that we've wanted to see in live action since the guy fell into the Sarlacc, and it was incredible seeing him finally getting his hero moment. I also love how the armor actually fit him, and you must admit it was quite funny seeing it hanging loose on Cobb Vanth all the way back in episode 1. Now unfortunately, Mando isn't able to get Grogu out of the area because he's reaching out through the Force, which has created a protective barrier around him. Though Fett takes the troop transports down with a 2-for-1er, Gideon decides that enough is enough and not only destroys the Razor Crest, but he also sends in Dark Troopers to take the child for himself. I was fuming because I just spent 30 quid on a Razor Crest model, and that order will be getting cancelled straight away. Don't you worry about that, Disney. Now, Dark Troopers are actually a group of elite stormtroopers that are considered the best of the best of the best, sir. They actually have the dark side within them, and also have some Force training which makes them infinitely more deadly than your typical grunt. We of course saw Moff Gideon preparing them, and they swoop in with ease and take Grogu captive before returning to Gideon's ship to blast off into hyperspace. This is of course the tragedy that the title was referring to, but I did hope that we'd hear the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, which, don't know if I told you that one before. Now Fett flies after them and confirms that the Empire are back, which of course worries Shand as she believed them to be long gone. In the ashes of the crest, Mando finds that little silver ball, along with the Beskar spear that he got from the Magistrate last week. This is a weapon that of course works against lightsabers, and I actually think that Mando might end up fighting against Gideon, who we know has the Darksaber. The pair definitely need to fight it out, and having these weapons that can actually combat each other makes the most sense to me. The trio decide that they will work together in order to get the child back, and Boba brings up how his father too was a foundling that fought in the Mandalorian Civil Wars, which of course hints towards the similarities that he shares with Mando. As Fett agree that the child would be safe in exchange for his armor, they are now in the character's debt, and they journey to Navarro where Mando meets with Cara. He's actually looking for Bill Burr, and I think that the next entry will be a prison escape in which Mando busts him out. Don't know how I came up with that amazing prediction there, but what's interesting is that Nick Frost also appears in the lineup for a split second, so it's likely that he will feature in the next entry too. Frost's working partner Simon Pegg has of course appeared in several Star Wars properties, so it's nice that he's actually going to be in one too. Now, Cora is a marshal for the Republic these days, and she doesn't want to hand over the info initially, but upon hearing that Grogu is in danger, she quickly does. The episode ends on Moff Gideon's ship, with him seeing firsthand that Grogu is giving in to the dark side and throwing around stormtroopers like they're absolutely nothing. Gideon gets out the darksaber, likely highlighting how he has it in order to juxtapose the staff that Mando is of course in possession of. Though he says he's taking him to Dr. Pershing to harvest him, I actually think that he will want to keep the child around in order to have someone under his control that is powerful in the ways of the Force. Now, as for Pershing, we know that he's still alive, but because Mando and co blew up the cloning lab on Navarro, he's probably been forced to move somewhere else. As for next time, I think that Mando will obviously carry out the prison bust, and we will finally get our big showdown in the finale, which airs the week after that. Now, there are rumours that Jar Jar Binks will be popping up in the series, and this comes from Daniel RPK, who said the character will be appearing down the line. I really like Daniel, and he's got a pretty good track record when it comes to this stuff, so fingers crossed it's true. He actually hit me up after I posted the plot leaks and asked if I had any others, so he's probably been using the Force to get rumours out of people in order to come up with this. At the moment, this series actually seems to be righting a lot of wrongs in the Star Wars franchise, so I would be down if he popped up, as we've just seen how a bit of redemption can go a long way. Now, as for how things are going to happen going forward, I think that when Mando actually meets back up with Grogu, he'll see a completely disheveled character that has likely been twisted by not only Gideon's experiments, but also the dark side. Now, he's not going to remain bad forever, and, that little silver ball, he picked that up for a reason, and I think if he is bad, all Mando will have to do is look at the ball, remember the good times, and things will be back to normal. But, they have an opportunity here to do something really left field, so who knows what's going to happen. Anyway, that concludes another excellent episode of The Mandalorian, and obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on the entry in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a thumbs up, and make sure you check out our breakdown of who Grand Admiral Thrawn is if you want to know the ins and outs of him, or just after a quick catch up. Don't forget, we're giving away 3 copies of the Lord of the Rings 4K box set, and all you have to do to be in with a chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below. The winner is going to be chosen at random on the 30th of December, so make sure you get involved. If you want to support the channel and get to see contents early, then please consider clicking the join button below. You can also come chat to us on the Discord server, linked in the description, or Heavy Spoilers on Twitter. Thanks for making it until the end of the video. You've been the best. I've been Paul. I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.